Hey guys, it's Nitro here, and today I want to talk about Hunter power level and the raid. I get a lot of questions in the stream. Are Hunters good right now? People coming and asking me how strong Hunters are, and I tell them they're strong. But this is a common question I keep getting, so I want to answer that in the most detailed way possible by looking at the top 5% of players in the raid, and we can look at Heroic and Mythic. So across all the bosses on Heroic, Beast Mastery is 6th, and Survival is a little lower, and then Marksmanship is a little lower than that. On the flip side, if we go to Mythic, Marksmanship, it's a very different graph. Marksmanship is 5th, and then BM and Survival are pretty low. They're like in the last 7 specs there. So let's dive in and see what's going on. So let's go to Heroic, let's go to Aeronog. Now Aeronog on Heroic, BM and Survival are just better because while they do have ads, I think the ads just die so fast now because people are geared that BM doesn't have its chance to do AoE damage. Like the ad, they can get maybe like 1 or 2 aim shots and like a rapid fire off, if that. I've been doing this fight on Heroic, and lately the ads just die. They just fall over. By the way, this is for the last week, so this does show the Hunter 5% buffs we got on our damage on across each spec. On Taros, BM and Survival are just popping off. They're the best single target specs. Survival is so underrated. I'm gonna be playing Survival in the raid this week on normal. If you want to check that out, come to the stream. Marksmanship, it's a single target isn't great. Council, Marksmanship, pops off in this fight. Our AoE is so strong on this fight as a Marksmanship Hunter, and then Survival and Beast Mastery are the bottom 2 specs. Survival AoE is pretty awful, and BM's isn't that great either. Senarth, BM is just, it's easy to play. It's easy to, you can do your whole rotation while you move. I'm not surprised. It's just number 1. Surprise Survival is so close to BM because Survival is a much harder spec to play, and you have to leave the melee range for the pull. So Surprise Survival is actually really close behind BM. Marksmanship's pretty weak on this fight, it looks like, just because it's mostly a single target fight. Dathia doesn't surprise me. BM's number 1, Survival's number 2. Marksmanship is good on this fight. It's just difficult because when Dathia does that pull in, you can't cast aim shot really, or you can maybe get 1 off, but then you got to just keep moving, and it's harder. You can't really do your whole rotation. There's also ads on the platforms when you go up. That's where Marksman could shine, but if they're not grouped up, you're not going to get much AoE damage down. If you're in a good group, I think Marksmanship can really shine and maybe be a little higher, but BM and Survival are just the best for this fight for sure. Grim Totem again, BM and Survival are pretty high end on the pack here, on the tier lists. Marksmanship's low just because it's mostly a single target fight. You can cleave on the ad phase, but it's very limited. Maybe you get a volley or 2 off and cleave with your aim shot, but that's really about it. Okay, Grim Totem, and then we go to Broodkeeper. Broodkeeper Marksmanship is going to be high just because of the ads. BM's actually close behind. I'm surprised. It's pretty close. Like a 3k difference there. Survival again is kind of lower end on the middle pack, but Marksmanship, I'm surprised it's not a little higher. Just because our AoE is so strong in that fight. And then Razageth is interesting. Razageth Survival is the top spec, and I think that's because maybe because of pet AI or something. I haven't played BM in this fight, but I know when you go to cross platforms and everything, pet AI can be weird. I'm not sure if that is the case, but Survival is just doing really well in this fight. This is mostly a single target fight, but there are ads during the transitions, and I think that's where Marksmanship catches up. So I've been doing this fight a lot, and usually BM Hunters are beating me in phase 1, and then during the transition I catch up, and then again they get ahead of me in phase 2, and then to the phase 3 transition I catch up. So we're very close with it's all very close on Razageth, which is pretty interesting. Now let's look at Mythic. So if we go to Mythic, all fights, best players, Marksmanship is 5th. It's crazy, but look at the graph. It's so close. Blizzard really knows how to balance their specs. It doesn't matter which one's a little ahead. If you play your spec well, and you know what you're doing, you can do the top damage. It doesn't matter what group you're in. It doesn't matter, oh, Devastation Evoker's the best. You play an Assassination Rogue, and you're playing better than the Evoker, you can easily top the damage. So that's why I don't play meta and WoW. Blizzard does a good job of balancing specs. There are outliers here and there, but without further ado, let's go into Aeronog here. All right, Marksmanship Hunter on Aeronog is much higher than it was in the on Heroic, and I imagine that's because, one, there's an extra ad. Actually, yeah, there's an extra ad. The ads live a lot longer. We can cleave more. I think that's as simple as that. Cheros, Survival, and PM just pop off on this fight. I'm not too sure why. I know there are some ads, maybe because I'm not sure why they're so far ahead on Mythic compared to Heroic. They're like significantly ahead of every other spec. So, and Survival's #1. So don't be sleeping on Survival, guys. Don't be sleeping on that spec. Council, it's gonna look pretty much exactly. I think this whole graph is gonna look pretty much identical to Heroic, just because the fight doesn't change much at all. Marksmanship's super strong for Council. Senarth, Beast Mastery is, wow, 3rd now. Survival's 5th. Then Marksmanship's lower. Yeah, BM is really strong on Senarth. Dathia, we start to see some weakness. This is probably the worst fight so far we've seen on Mythic for Hunters. We're pretty much to the bottom half. All specs are really close though. Grim Totem, oof. Grim Totem, we're not good, huh? Now this graph, there's a huge discrepancy. From 107k to 88k, so I'm not sure the differences on the last like half of the fights of Mythic, but Grim Totem Hunters are not great on Mythic at least. Broodkeeper, yeah, Marksmanship's gonna be good. BM and Survival very low. This fight obviously caters to if you're doing single target, you're gonna do a lot less damage if you're like stuck in the boss, versus if you can go AoE the packs. That's why we see a difference between 78k and like 117k. Huge difference there. And now Razageth Marksmanship Hunter. Wow, I thought it would be BM as the best. I don't think this fight is too different. There's obviously major differences in Mythic, but I don't think there's like more ads or anything. There's actually there are. Yeah, there's what, 3 ads on Mythic in the phase 3 transition, or 4. So I'm guessing that contributes to the Marksmanship's damage. But again, I think Razageth Mythic, you have to take this with a grain of salt. There are probably not as many parses, just because there's not as many guilds killing this. And I think a lot of Hunters are playing BM, specifically if they're progressing on this fight, because I think BM is just so much easier to play this fight than Marksmanship. But that's it, guys. There you go. Hunters are in a great spot. We're in 5th place. Mythic, we're a little struggling, but Mythic, it's so close. Like Mythic is, you can play whatever. Heroic, again, it's pretty close. And each fight though, we at least have pretty much one spec that does really well. Broodkeeper, I think Dathia is where we struggle. I think Grim Totem is where we struggle a lot on Mythic. So definitely Hunters are in a great spot. We're kind of middle of the pack. Some fights were like top 5. And then Taros, we just pop off on Mythic. Like Taros and Primal Council, like we do really well on. Those are probably our best fights. Our hardest part of playing Hunter is your survivability. We're very squishy. That's probably our major weakness. So I hope that answers some questions, if Hunters are good or not. The 5% buffs have been pretty nice to us. And yeah, I hope that answers some and clarifies some things. If you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.